February 1945. After years of brutal conflict, the end of the Second World War was finally in sight. The Allied forces were closing in on all fronts, and victory seemed inevitable. But as the fighting neared its conclusion, a new monumental question emerged. What would the world look like after the war? To answer this, three leaders gathered once again, this time in the Crimean resort town of Yalta. The decisions they were about to make would shape the continent of Europe for generations to come. The journey to Yalta was anything but simple. Located on the coast of the Black Sea, the town was chosen for its relative security and isolation, far from the front lines. But reaching it in the dead of winter was a challenge. Delegations traveled through war-torn landscapes and faced harsh weather conditions, arriving with a shared sense of urgency. The atmosphere upon their arrival was serious, almost somber. Everyone present understood that these talks were not just about finalizing the end of a war. They were about designing a new world, one that could prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. The stakes were incredibly high. The same three iconic leaders who had met before were together again. Franklin D. Roosevelt of the United States, Winston Churchill of Great Britain, and Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. But the years of war had taken their toll. They were older, visibly exhausted by the immense strain of leading their nations through the darkest of times. Yet, the responsibility on their shoulders had never been heavier. Over 8 days, they engaged in intense discussions about the future. They debated new national borders, the formation of post-war governments in liberated countries, and the nature of their future cooperation. Their vision had to extend beyond the immediate present and look decades into the future. 4 major topics dominated the conference agenda. First, the final plans for the defeat of Nazi Germany and its subsequent division and occupation. Second, the incredibly complex issue of Poland, its borders, and its future government. Third, Stalin's agreement to enter the war against Japan after Germany's surrender. And finally, the establishment of a new international organization to maintain peace. Each of these points required difficult negotiations and painstaking compromise. Not all agreements came easily, and the underlying tensions between the leaders' competing interests were palpable throughout the talks. One of the most significant and lasting outcomes of the Yalta Conference was the unified support for creating a new global institution. This organization was envisioned as a forum for international dialogue, a place where nations could resolve disputes peacefully and work together on common challenges. It was designed with the express purpose of preventing future conflicts on the scale of the 2 world wars. This shared vision for a united nations would later become a cornerstone of modern diplomacy, and a symbol of hope for a more cooperative world order. Although the conference ended with agreements on paper, a great deal of uncertainty remained. The fundamental differences between the democratic West and the communist Soviet Union created deep-seated tensions that simmered just beneath the surface of their public unity. Churchill, in particular, was wary of Stalin's intentions for Eastern Europe. Despite these anxieties, the leaders departed from Yalta with the shared belief that cooperation was the only viable path forward. The Yalta Conference, therefore, represented both a beacon of hope and a solemn warning, a historic opportunity to build a lasting peace, and a stark reminder of just how fragile that peace could be. The legacy of Yalta is complex and contested. The decisions made there literally redrew the map of Europe, established new spheres of influence, and set the stage for the Cold War that would soon follow. Some outcomes, like the creation of the United Nations, are widely celebrated as monumental achievements. Others, particularly the fate of Eastern European nations that fell under Soviet influence, became sources of bitter disagreement for decades. But one truth remains undeniable. Yalta was a defining moment, a pivotal turning point in the 20th century that continues to influence global politics to this day. Thank you for watching this episode of WW2 Chronicles. If you enjoy deep historical storytelling and want to learn more about the critical moments that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Join us as we continue to uncover the past. Thanks for watching.